I've thought many times about what my favorite wood is, and it would have to be cherry and cherry burl, just because it's easy to work with, smells good, but is very interesting, and I don't get it that often.
When our guest today comes across a fallen tree, he makes it his mission to preserve it by creating something beautiful, unique, and long-lasting. Join us as we visit woodturner Fred Williamson and learn about an art form that has existed for thousands of years. Come on.
Wood turning is woodworking that uses a lathe to spin the wood and create all types of things from rolling pin to turned wooden bowls.
And what drew you to this particular art form?
Well, I dropped out of college to try my hand. I worked in a woodworking shop and found I just was drawn to wood. I loved it, and they had a lathe there, and I built a little one of my own, and I've always done wood turning in the background.
So what is a lathe? Explain that to people. What exactly is that?
A lathe is an old tool. The old ones are just hand-powered or had an apprentice cranking a wheel, but you have electric motor attached to a spindle, a bowl blank is attached to the spindle, the piece of wood spins, and the chisel rests on the tool rest will remove shavings.
And for a long time you made a lot of different things, but then you just honed in on bowls. Why bowls?
That's right. I always wanted to be a custom furniture maker. I've made a lot of rocking chairs and tables over time, kitchen cabinets, and even hammered dulcimers. But I always turned bowls in the background, and when I was introduced maybe in 1977 to turning out a green wood, which is just the wood right from the log, right from the wood, so you don't have to have kiln-dried lumber, it just opened a world. And it's local, and it's as opposed to furniture you have to plan it out. It's spontaneous, and somebody's going to buy it.
So talk about this. This is great. Depending upon the piece of wood, and all wood is different, right? Even if it's from the same tree or same type of tree, the art creates itself. Talk about that.
Well, when you take a chunk of wood from a tree, I look at it, and since I've turned quite a few bowls, I can kind of visualize 2 or 3 types of bowls I could do out of each piece. And my job is to decide what's the best, the most dramatic, the most interesting that I can make out of each piece. That to me is fun.
So talk about some of the things that you get excited about. You cut into a piece of wood and you see something. What do you get excited about? Termites?
Well, when you can't tell what's in a tree until it's cut down or it's cross-section, but as soon as it's cut, then you can see what's in there. And I look for patterns, colors in the wood. If there's a high contrast between the heart and the sapwood, that's good. Termites, like you said, black ants can create all kinds of holes in it, a hollow tree. And then, of course, there are burls or growths on trees, anything that makes something interesting.
Well, you have 2 tins filled with things you found in trees.
People are careless with trees, and they put nails in them. And if you're turning, you can see my chisel mark from when I hit the nail. Sometimes something this big. This one actually was held to clothesline my mother used on a Portuguese oak in Richmond.
Oh, wow.
And when it came down, I found this big, totally grown over, totally disappeared. These were lightning cable holders on the Monticello tulip poplar. So these scads of these brass things. And then this one was interesting because this was buried inside. Again, there's a chisel mark when I turned it. And it was, someone had tried to make maple syrup out of this tree, I'm sure, and left this in as a tap for maple syrup tapping. Very unusual.
So your wood comes from trees basically that have already fallen, right?
Most typically,
and
or had to be cut down.
Talk about the trees from Monticello.
Well, that's an exciting local wood, but a pretty special. This tree, I read in the newspaper in 2008, they were going to take down that big tulip poplar, and I had always admired that tree. And when I got into it, it was just amazing. It was different than any poplar I'd ever worked with. It had character, it had density, it had weight. The inside that was hollow was just fire hardened. It dulled tools. It was just amazing. And then on the second tree, when we cut it, we were able to date it because it was solid. I cut a section, it was dated to 1808, which was in his time. So that tree had been there. He died in 1826. So it's just been really an honor to work with that wood.
So Fred, you pulled out this particular piece of wood. Tell me about it.
This is a branch that came off of one of the big Monticello poplar logs, just the edge of a branch coming off. So I sawed off several of these, and then the wood miser went to work and sawed some more. And they were dried and kiln dried. But this one is so neat because you can see the actual shape of the whole branch coming off. And I've been wanting to do this for 3 years. I'm finally getting around to finishing. It's enormously satisfying. And the sapwood has the sweetness in it, has the sugars, and poplar doesn't usually spalt, but these dark lines are called spalting, and it's fungal action. And you almost see where the water went and left, just the traces of the moisture coming and going, and you can read anything into it you want. Their continents, their faces, everything. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, talk about the process now. Let's go from the very beginning. What do you do to create a bowl?
Well, the part that people don't often think about is how big a bowl is when it starts, or I should say how heavy it is. So I'll take my van out and cut logs 40 to 43 inches long, ideally, and roll them up, just like the Egyptians, roll them up a ramp, put them in the van, and come back with a ton of wood, typically. Cherry, whatever is available. I've always enjoyed fruit trees. And Henley Orchard, I've had various, turn a wine sap bowl, Henley Gold bowl. Peach is really nice. Walnut's a little hard on you. Sassafras, and cedar, just hard to be in the room when I've turned it.
But then it's still beautiful.
When it's done.
When it's done.
And it's just wonderful, the huge variety that there is in each type of tree, and that they're all leaves growing in the sun, taking, same lignin. It's amazing.
So your wood is out and it's along the drive, and then
Correct.
You have to go out with a chainsaw, right, and select your pieces.
Yes, that's my stockpile out there. It's my potential bowls all lined up, and they often call to me as I drive by, turn me, and I say, no, I've got to do this other first. As they sit out there, though, they change over time, and they begin to decompose, and you get the spalting, all the pretty colors that come in from an older piece of wood.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, so then you bring it in. You bring in a piece, and and talk about that. You chop. Cut it with
I'll bring in typically a log section. I'll split it in half, and a half round comes into my lathe room. At that point, you start to commit. Before that, every bowl could be anything, but you commit. Where's the bottom of the bowl going to be? Will the top of the bowl be the natural edge following the bark line? And if it's burly or highly irregular, that's what you want. Or is it going to be a plain round bowl that'll feature more of the sapwood? And I use chalk to kind of roughly mark out where the chainsaw marks will be.
Right.
Rough size what you got. Oversized, because wood dries 7% as it dries, so it's going to shrink, it's going to get smaller.
Right.
Like a potter, you have to predict your shrinkage.
You learn these things the hard way, I'm
The
sure.
hard way.
But
I've made
there are a
all
lot
the mistakes there are.
And then you have it up on the lathe, and then you shape it on the outside first, right?
I always do the outside first. I always achieve the outside. Yeah. You turn the bottom up to, you clear the screws, and the top to where it's even or whatever the shape is, and then you start to look at what can come out of that bowl. That's the creative part.
Yeah.
And then the more journeyman work is to hollow it out and follow that outside contour very precisely. Just a bit over 1/8 of an inch thick is what I'm aiming for, 3/16.
And then when you're shaping it out, when you're hollowing it out, sometimes you find surprises.
Yes. Yeah, there'll be a knot, there'll be a screw in there or a nail or something. Sometimes I start a bowl and think, well, I think I can get some out of this, and I should have just thrown it away long ago. Or else there's something in the bottom, and the deep bowl becomes a shallow bowl until I get up out of the way of whatever's down below there.
Right. Well, there must be times, too, when you find a surprise and it works for you in a really great way.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. So I turn the bowl out of green wood. It has to dry a bit. Then I put it back on the lathe and sand it.
Oh,
And that's a whole nother process. But it's vital. What makes the bowl work is if it shows the figure,
Right.
and which means it has to be sanded smooth, and it feels good. It has to be smooth.
Right.
So lots of sanding involved. Once I've sanded it, though, then I can, with a parting tool, cut it down to it's just only a 1/2 inch nub usually, and then sand the bottom off and bring them over to dry.
Okay, that's right. They have to dry before you can stain them, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then you stain them.
Well, I put a
No.
finish on. It's a clear finish.
It's a finish, not
a
stain.
stain. Got to call you on that one.
No, that's good. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
But it's a finish. It's a clear finish. It's an oil type finish, and it brings out the color.
It's fascinating to look at how different they all are.
The patterns you mean in the wood? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the designs that you make. Some are shaped just like a very simple round bowl. Some are tall. They're very different.
But over the years, my basic shapes have gotten simpler and simpler. It's just the wood being itself. You're seeing the whole growth history, and it's a little parallel to life experience. I've found that the more stressed a tree it is, the more interesting it is. And it's the same for us, the more character we get, more interest, you know.
Yeah, I think so.
Had some
Yeah,
bumps and
definitely. We're counting on
knocks.
that, aren't we?
True.
So, where do people find your beautiful bowls?
Well, I did the Crozet Craft Fair for years, so I got exposed locally that way. They can find them at Monticello. Mostly, though, I just do the studio tour here in the fall. It's a big, once-a-year show that features local artisans around the area, the best of. And then they can always go to my website and look at what I have on hand.
So, how long does it take you, on average, to turn a bowl?
Well, it's a whole process. Now, you know, people ask me that question all the time, and I think, well, you know, how long does it take to paint a Starry Night, you know? The heck with it. But, you know, I have to go get the logs. So there's a day, usually, getting the wood, or at least 4 or 5 hours. The turning is what I normally think of as how long it takes to turn a bowl, and you might do that in 1 to 2 hours, you know, or less if everything goes great. But then that bowl has to be set aside to dry, taken in to be sanded, set aside to dry some more, because as it dries, it changes shape. Then I can flatten the bottom, sign it, resand it, get it all smooth, and put the second coat, hopefully the last coat of finish. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 more coats to bring it up to snuff.
Yeah.
And then, since I'm selling my bowls, I'm basically running a small business. I have to market them. I have to go to craft shows, build and put them up on a website, do my own paperwork, pay my own taxes. That's something you hate to think about as a self-employed person, but office work takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it's all of a piece. But I say overall, I do a bowl in about a 2-week period. Sometimes it's a week and a half if I'm pushing it, but it should take a while to dry and stabilize before you finalize it.
Well, and you've made bowls for a long time now, so you're going to keep making bowls for even longer?
Oh, it's my dream. Yeah, I mean, I used to think I never wanted to retire. Now I'm thinking, yes, I wouldn't mind slowing down, but I wouldn't be happy not turning bowls. I really wouldn't be. It's just exciting to think of getting into it.
Thank you, Fred.